There's clearly a lot of angst about it. I think it's a complicated thing to explain, and I think we've lost a number of people on that. But, you know, these things take time to settle down. We can see that the bus usage is up 10%, as was quoted by the bus company today, confirming that they're saving time, although they haven't changed the timetables to take advantage of it yet. Much more reliable. So clearly, in that regard, a success. The more mixed ones being in terms of there's still, you know, the volume of traffic going across Lendal Bridge, so it's perhaps not made it as an attractive end of the city as we perhaps or some people had originally expected. And we've got this awkward position that there's more fines, many more fines than we expected, and disproportionately for visitors to the city. So we have to find some solution to that if we're going to make the scheme permanent.
Do you buy the idea that there's been reputational damage to York?
Well, it clearly doesn't help. I mean, you know, there's stuff out there on Twitter and the internet which is not helpful to the city, and as I say, we've got to try and tackle that issue.
What about damage to the Labour Party in York? I mean, is it an issue that could cost you the election?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, there's mixed views out there. We have undertaken controversial things in the past. The introduction of the foot street, the introduction of the park and rides is one of the things that's been controversial. Some of the early bus lanes that we did. So we have undertaken a number of controversial measures over the years, which I think most people in hindsight would recognise are good, even if at the time they were very much opposed to them. So, you know, we do need to think about the future of the city. As I said, in terms of the local plan predictions, we potentially face a doubling or trebling of congestion over the next 15 years. And, you know, does anybody want that? If not, then we've got to do things like Lendal Bridge and getting a much better, more attractive bus service as an alternative if we're going to cope with the longer term consequences.
But what people are asking is, how far are you going to go? You've got a reputation for pioneering, some say pushing through regardless, schemes like this. How far is Dave Merrett prepared to go when it comes to the car in York?
It's not my decision, it is the Cabinet's decision, and we will have a very good and strong debate round the results of the trial.
You're not a monster. How do you feel about your reputation over this issue? I mean, people do blame you, those that are against it, don't they?
Yeah.
And the worst thing for you is they say you don't listen. You're not interested in the debate about the fact that it's not working, as some people feel. Is that true?
Yes. Well, I don't accept that it's not working. As I said, in terms of the evidence on what's happening with the buses and so on, in terms of all the predictions of gridlock and all the rest of it, the traffic network is still working. Yes, if you go through the city centre round the longer way, you will take somewhat extra on your journey. But as I say, if we're to tackle the long-term traffic and transport problems in the city, actually doing nothing is not an option.
But you say you don't accept that it's not working. Is that a catch-22 situation for you, in that it looks like you're not listening because you don't accept that? Because people say it's not working.
I mean, you know, as I was saying earlier, we certainly are listening. We need to address, you know, if we make the scheme permanent, and that, as I say, that's the question we've yet to decide. If we are to make it permanent, what do we do in terms of further mitigation? How do we address the fines issues to try and get those numbers down and avoid the particular problem that we have with visitors to the city?
So you're favouring a yellow card scheme at the moment, aren't you?
What do we do further in terms of further signal alterations to improve the flow? You know, there are particular challenges on Water End. What are we going to do about that? So, you know, out of this, if we choose to make it permanent, there are further things that we will need to do, and that's what we've been listening to people on very carefully. And as I say, you know, the judgment may be that, you know, on balance, the gains are not worth the downsides. And that's the decision that's to be made.
Do you think a yellow card scheme, one strike and you're out, one free pass, one mistake, is a good idea?
Well, that's one of the things that we'll be looking at. As I say, that was my original hope, that we'd do that.
And the DVLA said you couldn't, and now they said you can.
We were advised by the DVLA and the firm that we employ in terms of handling the fines that we couldn't do that, but apparently that is not actually the correct position.
Is going 7-7 a step too far for you now, do you think?
I think we've got to decide whether the current scheme's worth continuing and make our minds up on that and consolidate it and address the secondary issues first.
Can I ask you, were you in favour of going to 7-7 before the trial started?
Well, you know, this is what we're being advised by our transport experts is the thing to do, and you can clearly see that you will get more gains in terms of bus service reliability at peak time when it's the most congestion if you were to do that. But there again, there will be more secondary effects in terms of the rest of the traffic network. So, you know, that's another judgment that would have to be made at some point in the future.
So does that mean that you're more nervous about 7-7 now than perhaps you were 6 months ago? Or am I putting words in your mouth there? I don't know. You know, I mean, this is what people they want to know really what you think, don't they?
Yeah. Well, as I say, it's been a risky experiment. You know, we'll have to make that judgment at the end of it in terms of what people say. Okay.
And finally, what if the survey comes out massively against, i.e. the voice of the people? Liberal Democrats suggest 82% of people in York, in their independent survey, which I can't vouch for.
Yes.
You certainly won't. They suggest 82% of people in York are against it. What if the real survey comes out with something like that?
Well, it's interesting they say that now, when actually this was one of the propositions in the Local Transport Plan 3 that they approved before they left office. So,
okay, well, all politicians have views and they change for various reasons, don't they? But the issue is, what if this survey of the people who pay the council tax, who are your voters, what if they say, Dave, stop? Will you stop?
Well, as I say, if it's overwhelmingly against, I would think that we would certainly take that into account.